Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Nikki LaRose, and today let's do a fun Euphoria inspired makeup look. And I know I'm kind of late to this trend. The show's been around for a while, but it's still super popular and they're still pumping out the most gorgeous eye makeup looks or makeup looks in general. So let's get right into it. Let's play with color and some fun things and let's get inspired. So before we get into this look, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel. So if you've seen the show, you've seen how gorgeous these eye makeup looks that Donnie Davy creates on the show. They're super bright, they're colorful, they're creative, they're really fun. They're not so serious, obviously. Like they have crystals and rhinestones, and she creates these incredible wing eyeliners and pairs like really amazing colors together. She's just really creative. So today we're gonna just get in there, have fun, pick colors that I don't normally gravitate towards on my channel or like on my clients. So this is gonna be a lot of fun to really get in there and get creative. And like I said, if you've seen the show, her eye makeup looks are just, they're so stunning and they're so playful, but they have like a little bit of an edge to them, which I think is really cool and I really appreciate that. Also, another note about the makeup on the show, it's not focused on skin. So we're not gonna do a lot of like, major contouring or blush placement. We're not gonna focus a lot on foundation or even concealer. It's gonna be very much taking the back seat for this makeup look. Instead, we're gonna focus on the eyes and then there'll be a little bit of skin, but it's not gonna be the focus. To start my eye makeup, I'll be prepping my eyes very lightly, not super heavy. I don't want to add too many layers before I go in with my shadows. So this one's nice and lightweight. This one's from Nars. I've used it many times before. This will help give my shadows something to grip to, and it'll also, since it is tinted, it'll help to brighten my eyelids so the colors are more true to tone. So once I've applied that primer all over, I'm just gonna take a small blending brush and just buff out the edges. And just blend it out. So before I get into my eye makeup, I'm going to take just a teeny bit of a cream contour, something you would obviously use on your face, but I'm going to use just a little bit of this just to add some depth and some interest and contrast to the crease of my eye and give me more of like a sculpted look before I go in with my eyeshadow, because I'm not going to be creating a lot of depth with the eyeshadow that I'm going to be using. So I want to go in beforehand and just really naturally create some more interest and more depth in my eye. You'll see. The tiniest bit. I'm only using a really small amount. So I'm gonna look straight ahead into my mirror. So on camera, it might not be super impactful. You really might not notice it at all if I'm being honest, but I promise you, it's just gonna add a little more depth to my eye, which I think I really need, and a little more interest, and it's gonna be like my pre-eye makeup sculpting, but it might not be like the most impactful on camera. I'm just gonna give you that warning. So I'm kind of just stamping this on. And bringing it up towards my temple. And if I mess up the tail of my brow, because my brow's they're already filled in, I already do that off camera just because it takes up such a huge chunk of time. And I've done a brow tutorial in the past, which you can definitely go back and watch if you want to see how I do my eyebrows. But I might need to touch it up after I do this technique because as you can see, I'm kind of dragging that brush over the tail of my brow, but it's no big deal. I'll go in later and I'll fix it. You know, like I said, I want to just be really natural and pretty much like undetectable, like unclockable. So I'm not using a ton of this product. I'm just using a small amount, and I'm really just using a stamping motion just to get in there and press it onto my skin. But the end result I'm trying to create is, like I said earlier, more depth, a little more interest, more contrast in my crease without having to go in with more eyeshadows to create that look. But what it's doing is giving my eyes a really natural, really subtle, lifted and sculpted look up. I'm just gonna go back with my blending brush and make sure there's no creases that happened while we were doing that cream bronzer. And now I'm gonna go in with a second eye base, and this one's gonna be tinted. This is not something I use that often, but for this look, I think it's gonna be the perfect base for the kind of colors that I wanna use. This is from Laura Mercier. It's the Caviar Stick Eye Color in Cashmere. So this is gonna be like my second eyeshadow base, and it's gonna be kind of like the foundation for the rest of my colors to go on top. So I'll be using this on my eyelid and then just lightly blending it into my crease. So starting on my actual eyelid, and just grabbing that same blending brush that I used earlier, I'm going to start to blend this into my crease. I'm going to layer it, so I'm going to go back in with the second coat. And just a little more in the outer portion of my eye. And then just very lightly blending that excess product outward. Okay. And one more coat. And then blending it outward towards my temple. Okay. So eyeshadow base number 2 is done. So now I'm gonna move on to the eyeshadow palette that I'll be using. So the palette I'll be using is the Rose Quartz palette from Huda Beauty. This palette is stunning. It's so gorgeous and the colors are so fun. So I'll be dipping into the color Cherished to start. So to start, I'm just gonna place this color pretty much on the inner portion of my eyelid, a little bit into my crease, but I'm gonna stop about halfway on my eyelid just to start, you know, and we're playing around. I don't have like a actual map or plan of what I'm gonna do with this eyeshadow look. And I think that's like the beauty of these kind of looks is you can have fun with them. They're not serious. You don't have to be so cut and dry about it. So we're gonna have fun and we're gonna see where the wind takes us. So next shade I'm going to dip into is Radiant. I'm just going to use a touch of this and it's just going to be focused towards the outer portion of my eye just to create some depth. So switching to a different blending brush. This one's from Zoeva. It's one of my favorites. It's the 227 Luxe Definer brush. This is basically like a nice blending brush.
Nice. Let's see really what you're doing right now.
So in the outer portion of my eye, I'm really doing like a sideways V in terms of like the blending that I'm using. So straight down and out and then straight across. So it's kind of like creating that sideways V, which I think is just a really flattering way of blending and applying your eyeshadow when it's focused on the outer portion of the eye. Doing that sideways V really just brings out your eye shape and it elongates your eyes too. And like I said, I just think it's really flattering.
That's really cool.
So sideways V as opposed to getting in there and doing a circular blending motion, which would bring it up and out and kind of all over the place. Okay, so now that I've created a little more depth on the outer portion of my crease, I'm gonna move on to another color. So I'll be using the same brush and I'm gonna dip into Happiness.
Where are you placing that?
So I'm just gonna press that pink onto the outer portion of my eyelid. And then just gently blend into the outer portion of my crease. Moving on to eyeliner, I'll be starting my wing liner using one of my favorite liners. This is from Makeup Forever. It is the Artist Color Pencil in whatever black. Okay, now we're gonna start to map out our wing liner. Taking a really small blending brush, I'm gonna start to blend out that liner to start to really create the shape that I want. Okay, before I finish this, because I'm gonna put another shadow on top, I'm gonna start my other eye. And like I've mentioned, this is my problem eye. It's always super hard for me to match this eye to this eye because you'll see like this eye is just naturally more open than this eye, and this eye has quite a hood going on right here. So it makes creating a super symmetrical, super matchy eyeliner look a little more difficult. Even if you're a pro makeup artist like me, I still struggle with it. So if they're not twins, it's okay. Okay, so now I'm gonna set my eyeliner. I'm gonna smoke it out just a little bit more and just, you know, kind of play with it, make it a little more fun. And I'll be using that same blending brush and dipping into Mantra. Now this is the part where the eyeliner is gonna get really messy before it gets clean and sharp, so just bear with me. And if you watched my eyeliner hacks video that I just posted, you'll know what technique I'm using right now and what I'm gonna do next to clean it up. Okay, so I diffused the line of that eyeliner with that powder shadow. And also what this is gonna do, just like I've mentioned before, is anytime you set your cream or your pencil eyeliner with the powder, it's just gonna reinforce it. It's gonna make it completely solid, so it's not gonna smudge, it won't run, it won't crease, it's not gonna move. Don't worry, it's gonna be even when I'm done. Okay, so grabbing my micellar water and a little thin Q-tip like I've shown you guys before. These are my favorite Q-tips. I'm gonna dip into that. This is where you have to be careful, and this is where it's really crucial, your placement. So before, when I was blending my eyeshadow, I was kind of like just going for it, not really worrying about it too much because I knew I was gonna clean it up with a Q-tip anyway. But so this is where you need to be super precise and make sure you're looking straight ahead into a mirror. Okay, so there's a little bit of an error on my end, so I'm gonna go in and tweak this line or tweak this side. Moving on to eyeliner, I'll be using a small petite blender brush. This one's from Zoeva. It's a 223 blending brush. And I'm gonna dip into Blissful. So I'm gonna start this eyeshadow on the inner portion of my tear duct. And I'm being really gentle and like precious with this color because this eyeshadow is pretty messy. So I don't want to have it end up all over my eyes. I just want it in like really specific spots and just gently blend it. So I'm gonna work really slowly with this. And I'm just bringing whatever's left over on my brush, I'm just gently blending it into my crease. And going back to like what I was talking about earlier with these looks, I think what makes them so fun is there's no set rules. And I think that's what the makeup artist on Euphoria does just so beautifully, is she thinks so far out of the box and she's so creative, and she doesn't apply like makeup rules when she's doing these makeup looks. And I think that's just, it's really inspiring to see. Using the same brush, I'm going to start to layer Moon Magic in my tear duct.
This is such a pretty look.
Okay. All right, we're gonna move on to mascara and then lashes. So I'm gonna do one coat of the Buxom Extrovert Mascara. Just a really light coat. Moving on to lashes, I usually prefer individual lashes or like more clustery lashes, but I'll be doing a strip for this look, and I'm gonna cut them. I'm gonna cut a quarter of this lash strip off. Okay, so I'm really using more of a simple small lash because I don't want to take away from all the eye makeup and the shimmer and the crystals that we're going to add on later and the eyeliner. So if my lashes were too big and dramatic, it would really take over the whole look, and I just don't want to do that. So sticking to that 3/4 lash, I'm going to take my Lash Glue.
Okay.
Okay, we're gonna let this glue dry down just a bit. And don't worry, it's not gonna stay blue. It dries completely clear. So now what I'm doing with the placement of this lash is a little interesting. It's, if you remember the fox eye makeup trend that was huge like 2 years ago, people were cutting lash strips in half or like 3/4, just like I did. And instead of placing the outer portion of that lash strip like on the actual lash line, if you zoom in, there's a big gap right here in between where my lash line is and my lashes are and where the strip is placed. And so the reason why I did that is because I wanted to enhance that wing liner effect, and I want to make sure that I'm keeping my eyes going straight up. And so if I placed this like heavier lash directly onto where my lashes are, it would create a shadow, first of all, and it would actually bring down, like I can actually show you if I push it down, it would create this shadow and it would bring down that beautiful wing that I worked so hard on creating to give me that lifted, unique effect. And so placement on your lashes is so crucial because it can really make or break your whatever look you're trying to go for. And in this case, like I said, I want to keep that cat eye effect with this wing. And so placing that end just slightly up, further up from where my lash actually is, it's key. It really adds to that lifted effect. And so it's not going to bring down my eyeliner. It's going to maintain that shape and keep my eyes more pulled up. It's going to feel funny doing it because it's not natural. It's completely unnatural to place a lash above your natural lash line, but the effect is pretty awesome. Okay, moving on to the other side. So what I'm gonna do now is take a little bit of black liquid liner and just very gently fill in that gap between where I placed my lashes and where my actual lashes are, just to make sure there's no weird gap where you can really detect that it's, above where it naturally should be. So I'll be taking the Huda Beauty, this one's double-ended, I'll be taking the liquid side and just very carefully placing this in between. Okay, so I'm gonna move on to skin before I get to the really fun part, which is going to be adding some crystals to this eye makeup look. I'm gonna take just a touch of this liquid highlighter. This is the Beauty Light Wand in Pillow Talk from Charlotte Tilbury. And like I mentioned earlier, the looks on the show, they're so eye focused, they're not skin focused. Skin is not the main star for these looks, and so I wanna keep it that way. And also, the looks really aren't like overly highlighted like their cheeks aren't overly highlighted, their skin's not overly glowy, their skin's just very simple. And I really appreciate that too. I think that really helps to balance these more intense eye makeup looks. So, but knowing me, I can't avoid highlighter altogether. So I'm just gonna add a little bit of this to my cheeks. So my skin was already prepped off camera. So I'm just gonna go in and dot that on. This one's mine, so that's why I applied it directly to my face. Kind of forgot how fast these dry on the skin, so it might look like I'm blending it pretty aggressively, but I'm not. And so typically in one of my tutorials, you'd see me apply this on top of my foundation, which would make it more impactful because there's nothing going on top of it to dilute it. But for this look, like I said, I don't want to be super skin focused and super glowy. So I'm doing it underneath just so I have like a touch of like that glow from within type look. For foundation, I'll be using one of my favorites. This is the Dior Backstage Face and Body Foundation in 2W. But before I do, since my skincare has been applied so long ago at this point, my skin's feeling a little more like dry. So I'm gonna refresh it by using the Veil Soft Focus Setting Spray from Hourglass. Any setting spray will be great for this. Like you don't have to use this one, but the whole idea is it's gonna re-wet my skin and re-soften it. So when my foundation goes on top, it's not gonna go on top of dry skin, which is like you saw with the highlighter, it was hard to blend because it was going on top of really dry skin. And not dry in a sense of like dry, I need moisturizer, but dry in a sense of it's been so long since I applied my skincare and my skin prep that it is fully absorbed and my skin feels dry to the touch. So this is a great tip if you want to rehydrate your skin in between applications. I highly recommend doing this. So I'm just gonna spray my face. Now, I hate to use the word basic to describe this foundation, but it is basic. And I mean that actually in a great way. Like this foundation, I rave about this foundation. It's so nice, but it is like basic in the best way possible. Like it looks good on everyone. It's just straightforward. It always lays so nice on the skin. And it's not gonna be a focus. Like I talked about earlier, like the skin isn't a focus and this foundation isn't gonna take over my skin. It's not gonna take over the whole look and be super dramatic. It's just gonna be nice. It's gonna even me out and it's gonna be just the right amount of coverage. So I only did one pump of that and I blended it all over and I'm not gonna go in with any more. So I'm not gonna layer it like you can. Okay, now time to tackle my dark circles. I'll be using the Jouer Essential High Coverage Concealer in Toast. This is such a high coverage concealer. I mean, it doesn't play, it doesn't mess around. So I'm gonna use a really small amount of it because normally in my tutorials, I really do a lot of under eye concealer and a lot of under eye brightening because that's kind of like my thing and I love that kind of look. But once again, I'm gonna keep it really simple for this kind of look just to keep the focus on the eyes. So I'll be using a lot less than I typically would of this product. And this is my personal concealer, so I'll be going in with the applicator. And I'm gonna take just a touch on my nose. Taking a small blending brush from Zoeva. This is a 227V brush. And that's it. And like the perfectionist in me wants to cover up my dark circles even more and like brighten them even more and layer on tons of concealer and highlighter and powder, but I'm not going to for this look. Going back to my cream bronzer from e.l.f., I'll be using this to just really lightly shade and warm up my skin. Same brush we used earlier. I'm gonna dip into that cream bronzer. The reason why I chose this bronzer out of all the other cream bronzers that I have is because it is so sheer. It does not add a heavy layer of makeup to the skin, so it's gonna be nice and natural. And again, keeping that focus on the eye makeup and not the rest of the face. So it's just gonna give me enough of what I need. So this bronzer is actually gonna double as my blush. I'm not gonna actually go in with a blush. I just don't want the focus to be there. I wanna keep it like really simple on the skin. So I'm gonna add this, but instead of keeping it in the place you would normally keep like a contour or a cream bronzer, I am gonna work it slightly more into my cheeks so it is giving me some color in that spot. So I am going to go in and set my under eye concealer. So I'm going to take a little bit of this loose powder from Zoeva. It's a sheer powder. It's pretty light. You'll see it's like very light, but it is sheer, so I can get away with using it under my eye. The shade is Dazzling. Taking a powder puff, I'm going to dip into the powder. So taking whatever is on my powder puff, I'm going to work this even more into the puff using the palm of my hand. This will basically ensure that when you do go and apply it, that the powder is evenly distributed onto the puff. It's not going to be patchy. You're almost like pre-blending the powder before you apply it, so it's going to go on just really easy. Tap off a little excess. Go back in for more powder for the other side. Rework it in. Tap off the excess so it's not too crazy. And I always bring the powder onto the sides of my nose. This helps to give me a very natural, like contoured effect with my nose. I'm not trying to make it like super skinny, but it just gives me like a nice little like kind of effect. And then it also helps with oil control. My nose gets, you know, oily throughout the day, especially on the sides of the nose, and I want to keep it nice and set so it's not super shiny. And then whatever's left over, I'm gonna get right here because I want shine on my forehead, but I want it to be controlled. I don't want it to be too much or too overly glowy. So we'll leave the top right here. We'll leave it nice and slightly glowy. I'm leaving the tip of my nose just for like a natural glow. So now I'm gonna go in and do some shadow on my bottom lash line. I'll be taking a small pencil brush. This one's from Morphe. It's an M431 brush. And I'm gonna dip back into Radiant. And then a little bit of Happiness. Okay, time for the fun part, the really fun part. That's gonna be using crystals. And I'll be grabbing that Lash Glue one more time. This is such a great glue if you're applying crystals or pearls to your eye makeup look. This will hold those suckers and they will not fall off. It's amazing. Okay, so I'm gonna use my Lash Glue. And I'm gonna just take the tip of the wand. So I'm gonna start to dot some glue on. And then using this little magic tool. I have no idea why crystals stick to the tip of this, but it just does, and it's amazing. I'm gonna dip into my first crystal. I'm gonna go for a smaller one. You actually have to work fast with this because the glue does dry pretty quickly. So those are my first couple ones. Now I'm gonna match to this side before I move on to any other spots. This is where it's gonna be tricky because my lashes are gonna get in the way of this application. So I'm gonna have to twist a little bit to see what I'm doing. I think the beauty of using crystals is you could apply them anywhere on the eye. You don't have to place them obviously where I'm placing them. And they look so stunning. So you can get creative and apply them anywhere you want. There's really no rhyme or reason. This is kind of like what I felt like doing, so. But so now I'm just kind of lining them along my crease. So along where I have that really shimmery shadow. And I'm alternating the sizes of them. So I have larger ones in the center, and on each end, I have the little mini ones. Okay, I'm gonna add just one more. Moving on to lips, I'll be lining my lips first with the Makeup Forever Artist Pencil in Endless Cacao. Okay, so for lips, I feel like it could have gone either way. I could have done like more of a natural look with just like a gloss or a simple, like more of a pink or natural lipstick. Instead, I'm more inspired by the lipstick looks, especially the lip liner looks that the character Lexi on the show typically wears, which is like a darker lip liner, so like more defined. So I'll be using this pencil to get that kind of look. Okay, I think that's enough of that. Okay, and so my husband calms down. I'm gonna blend this. I'm gonna blend out this lip liner because my husband's having issues. Just a little. That way I don't have to work so hard when I'm applying my lipstick on top. You know, normally if you apply lip liner, you know, really dramatic, really sharp, right? And then you go and you have to apply your lipstick on top, you have to work harder to blend that lipstick on top of that lip liner to make it look blended. Instead, this is a really good tip if you struggle with that. Pre-blend your lip liner and then apply your lipstick and it'll look just even more blended and seamless and, you know, like a pro did it. Now, I'm just gonna warn you, the lipstick that I'm gonna put on, I'm not convinced that I want it for this look, so we're gonna try it and see if we like it. I'll be using or trying, I just got this and I'm so pumped and excited to try it. This is the Givenchy Nude Beige Sheer Velvet Lipstick. And if I'm being totally honest, when I get new lipsticks, I like to hoard them. I don't like to use them. I don't want to touch them. I look at them and I smell them because there's nothing like a new lipstick, especially a fancy or like, you know, more like luxury brand lipstick. There's just nothing like them. The way they're formulated, the way they lay on your lips, they're so nice. So it kind of kills me a little bit to break this out and use it right away instead of looking at it for like weeks on end, but I'm gonna do it. It smells so good. I know not everyone likes fragrance in their makeup, and I don't even know if this is actually fragrance. It could just be like the ingredients inside just smell good. I'm gonna guess that there is some fragrance in it, like whether it's like natural or synthetic. Either way, I love fragrance with makeup. I think it's just, it adds like the whole like experience of putting on nice makeup. It just adds to it. So I wish you could smell it. Okay, and that completes my Euphoria inspired makeup look. This look was so much fun to do for you guys. I hope you like it as much as I do. I love this look. Like, I could just take this eye makeup off and sit here and do Euphoria inspired eye makeup looks all day long. Like, they're a blast. And it really is just like so inspiring to see the looks on TV, and like all the looks that she creates are just, they're phenomenal. They're so gorgeous, and they're so creative, and like I said earlier, that she really thinks outside the box, and that's really inspiring to see with makeup. And it makes makeup fun again, and I love that. And so doing this kind of makeup look, it's just fun. So I highly recommend it. Take the time to like pull out some crystals and do some fun colors. Tag me on Instagram if you do create this look on yourself. Let me know if you want me to do another one of these Euphoria inspired makeup looks. Like, I would gladly do it. So leave me a comment. Let me know if there's one in particular that you love, that you've seen created on the show. Let me know, and I would love to create it on YouTube for you guys. So don't forget to follow me on Instagram for more makeup inspiration and how-tos. And I will see you guys next time. Bye.